Life in my small hometown was as straightforward as it gets. My parents, John and Mary, were the rock-solid types, not much for fancy words or big dreams, but when it came to love and education for me and my brother Mike, they were all in. I guess you could say I had a pretty normal life, working as an insurance agent. It wasn't exactly thrilling, but it paid the bills. Then, along came Alex. He was different from the guys around town. He had this way of seeing the world that just pulled you in. We hit it off immediately, and before I knew it, we were planning a wedding. My job didn't seem all that important anymore, especially when we found out I was pregnant. I decided to quit and focus on our family. Alex was over the moon about it, always saying how he wanted our kids to have one parent around full-time. We ended up moving closer to Alex's parents, just a 5-minute walk away. He thought it'd be great, you know, having family so close to help out with the baby and stuff. I wasn't exactly thrilled, but I agreed. That decision would come back to bite me in ways I couldn't have imagined, all thanks to Mrs. Anderson, my mother-in-law from hell. Mrs. Anderson had this idea of a perfect daughter-in-law, and let me tell you, I wasn't it. The woman had a comment for everything I did, from the way I washed the dishes to how I decided to stay home and raise our kid. One day, I was in the kitchen, trying to make sense of her latest critique on my lasagna, when Alex walked in. He found me muttering to myself about how to properly layer noodles according to the gospel of Mrs. Anderson. "What's got you talking to the pasta, Em?" he asked, trying to hide his amusement. "Your mom," I huffed, not looking up from the dish. "Apparently, I can't even make lasagna right. It's too, what did she call it? Unorthodox." Alex sighed, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Don't let her get to you. You know how she is."
"Yeah,
"A nightmare dressed like a daytime TV show host," I grumbled, but I couldn't help but lean back into his embrace. "It'll get better, you'll see. She just needs to get used to how things are now," he said, always the optimist. "Get used to it? Alex, she treats me like I'm the latest in a long line of disappointments she's had to endure. Next, she'll be telling me how to breathe correctly," I said, exasperated. "We could always try breathing exercises if it'll make her lay off," Alex joked, trying to lighten the mood. "I need more than breathing exercises to deal with your mother. I need a miracle," I shot back, finally cracking a smile. Despite the constant friction with Mrs. Anderson, life with Alex was everything I had hoped for and more. He was my rock, always there to make me laugh when I felt like pulling my hair out. For now, I was content in our little bubble, blissfully unaware of the storms brewing on the horizon. It wasn't long before her helpful visits became my daily dread. She'd come over, especially when Alex was at work, as if she had a radar for my alone time. The minute she stepped through the door, it was like she was on a mission to find fault. One afternoon, she caught me in the middle of tidying up the living room. "Emma, darling," she began, her voice dripping with a tone that was anything but darling. "This place is a mess. Do you even know how to clean properly?" I bit my tongue, counting to 10 in my head. "I'm doing the best I can, Mrs. Anderson," I replied, trying to keep the peace. "And these dishes," she continued, not missing a beat as she moved to the kitchen. "Look at these spots. When I was your age, I worked a full-time job and still kept the house spotless." There it was, the age-old lecture on how I was doing everything wrong. I clenched my jaw, feeling my frustration rise. "Times have changed, Mrs. Anderson. I do work, taking care of your grandson and this home. That's no excuse for living off my son and wasting his money," she snapped back, her words like venom. I had heard enough. "Look, I appreciate your concern, but I'm not idling. Alex and I agreed on this arrangement. It's our decision, not just mine." Her eyes narrowed. "A real woman knows how to balance work and home. You're just taking the easy way out." The argument was going nowhere, and I knew it. "If you're done inspecting, I have a lot to do," I said, my voice cold. She huffed, clearly displeased, but finally started heading towards the door. Just remember, Emma, my son deserves better. The door closed behind her, and I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Alone again, I slumped against the counter, feeling both defeated and furious. How could one person make me feel so small? Alex came home to find me still stewing over his mother's words. "What's wrong, babe?" he asked, immediately noticing my mood. "Your mother," I started, and that was enough to set me off on a rant about her visit. "She thinks I'm lazy, that I'm wasting your money, that I don't know how to clean, or cook, or do anything right." Alex listened, his expression a mix of frustration and sympathy. When I finished, he wrapped me in a hug. You know I don't agree with any of that, right? We decided together for you to stay home with Max. You're doing an amazing job. Mom, she's from a different time. I'll talk to her, okay?" I nodded, leaning into his embrace. "I just wish she could see that I'm trying my best." "We'll get through this," Alex assured me. "Together, all right? Don't let her get to you." Easier said than done, I thought. But with Alex by my side, I felt a little bit stronger. Mrs. Anderson might be a storm cloud in my sunny sky, but I was starting to learn how to weather the storm. The battle lines at our dinner table were drawn over broccoli and butter-laden casseroles. I was all for quinoa salads and grilled veggies, trying to keep things light and healthy. Alex, bless his heart, dug into whatever I whipped up with a smile. Our little guy, Jake, was shaping up to be a mini food critic with a taste for anything green. But Mrs. Anderson, the queen of cream and butter, wasn't having any of it. She reckoned my health kick was some trendy nonsense that would cost more than we could chew. Come Jake's 6th birthday, the in-laws swung by to drop off their love and, in Mrs. Anderson's case, a trunkload of her signature dishes. She marched into our kitchen like it was her own and unloaded an arsenal of what could only be described as heart attack on a platter. I didn't mind. To each their own, right? But as we all sat down to celebrate, it was clear my cooking was the main attraction. Alex and Jake piled their plates with my dishes, and even Mr. Anderson, a man of few words and fewer dietary restrictions, bypassed his wife's offerings for mine. Mrs. Anderson, not one to be upstaged, started pushing her dishes across the table. "Try some of this, it's got real flavor," she insisted, her voice laced with a challenge. Alex, ever the diplomat, tried to let her down easy. "Mom, your food's great, but it doesn't agree with me lately. Emma's been cooking lighter, and it's been easier on my stomach." Even Mr. Anderson chimed in. "I get enough of these heavy meals at home. It's nice to have something different." You could see the storm brewing in Mrs. Anderson's eyes. She was about as pleased as a cat in a bath. Without another word, she stood up, her cheeks a shade of tomato, and made some excuse about forgetting something in the oven at home. She was out the door before dessert, leaving a cloud of tension in her wake. After the door clicked shut, Alex let out a low whistle. "Well, that went smoothly," he said, sarcasm thick in his voice. We all shared a laugh, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. Mrs. Anderson had a way of holding grudges like they were prized possessions. As the evening wound down, and we said
Goodbye
to the last of the guests, I caught Alex watching me with a look that was half admiration, half concern. "You okay?" he asked, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. I leaned into him, the chaos of the day melting away.
Yeah,
"I'm good. Your mom might be a hurricane, but I've got my storm shelter right here." He chuckled, kissing the top of my head. "That's my girl. Just remember, we're in this together. Team us against the world."
Yeah,
"Team us," I echoed, feeling a surge of confidence. Mrs. Anderson might think she could rain on our parade, but together, Alex and I were a force to be reckoned with. And if that meant weathering a few storms along the way, so be it. After all, what's a little rain to a couple of umbrella holders like us? After the storm that was my son's 6th birthday, things settled down. Mrs. Anderson, my not-so-beloved mother-in-law, gave us a wide berth, which was a relief. Life was peaceful until Christmas rolled around. Out of the blue, Mrs. Anderson called, asking me to whip up some dishes for the family gathering. It took me by surprise, but hey, I thought it might be a chance to mend fences. I put my heart into those dishes, making sure each one was a hit. The day before the gathering, I dropped them off at her place, feeling hopeful. My little boy, eager to spend time with his grandma, went over early on the day. When Alex and I arrived, the house was buzzing with relatives. Everyone seemed genuinely happy to see us, everyone except her. The atmosphere was weird, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe we were finally turning a corner. That hope shattered the moment Mrs. Anderson stood up, clearing her throat for everyone's attention. "I need to apologize," she began, her voice louder than necessary. "I made a mistake letting Emma prepare our dinner." I felt every eye in the room on me, confusion and embarrassment flushing my cheeks. What was she on about? She made a show of tasting my dish, then dramatically spat it out. "See? Inedible," she announced, urging others to try and see for themselves. My heart sank as I watched relatives hesitantly taste my food, their expressions turning sour. It didn't make any sense. I'd tasted those dishes, they were fine. "What's going on?" I whispered to Alex, who looked as baffled as I felt. He shrugged, at a loss. "I don't know, Em. This isn't right." Mrs. Anderson was basking in the drama, a smug look on her face as she watched the scene unfold. "I'm so sorry you all had to taste that. I have no idea what Emma was thinking." Encouraged by her performance, other relatives hesitantly followed suit, tasting the food and then sharing looks of disappointment. Murmurs of agreement spread around the table like wildfire, with people politely pushing their plates away. The mood shifted, with everyone suddenly becoming a critic, suggesting that what I'd brought to the table was less a feast and more a fiasco. Just as the embarrassment was about to swallow me whole, my husband's cousin, Mike, tried to lighten the mood. "Hey, don't sweat it," he said, clapping me on the back with a half-hearted chuckle. "We all botch it up in the kitchen now and then. No biggie." But his words, meant to comfort, barely registered. My gaze was locked on my mother-in-law, who was practically glowing with vindication. Her smile was tight, satisfied, as if she had orchestrated the entire evening just to see me falter. Feeling like I was in some sort of nightmare, I approached the table and grabbed a fork. I had to know. Each dish I had lovingly prepared and tasted to perfection before bringing it to the gathering was now tainted with a pungent taste of balsamic vinegar. It was baffling, these recipes were my signature, crafted without even a hint of vinegar. Standing there, amid the bewildered and disappointed glances from relatives, I felt a mix of embarrassment and betrayal. "Mrs. Anderson," I started, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Could you please explain? There's vinegar in everything. It's overpowering, and it wasn't part of my recipes." Mrs. Anderson, with a coolness that seemed rehearsed, shrugged off my concern. "How should I know, dear? Perhaps you simply made a mistake. It happens to the best of us." But before I could press further, a voice, clear and innocent, cut through the tension. "Mommy! I know what happened to the food." It was my son, Danny, barely 6 years old, charging into the room with a bright bottle of balsamic vinegar clutched in his little hands. The room went silent, all eyes on him. "Danny, sweetheart, what are you talking about?" I asked, kneeling to his level. "I saw Grandma," he exclaimed, nearly out of breath from his excitement. "She put this in all your food when you were outside." A collective gasp filled the room. Mrs. Anderson's face turned a shade paler, her composure slipping. "That's absurd," she sputtered. "Why would I do such a thing?" "Danny, can you show me exactly what you saw Grandma do?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm despite the storm of emotions raging inside me. With the seriousness of a judge, Danny walked over to the table, pointing the bottle at each dish I had made. "Here, and here, and here," he announced, his finger moving from one dish to the next. After the whole fiasco with the dishes and Danny's bold claim, the room was as tense as a coiled spring. I couldn't have been prouder of my little guy for speaking up, his honesty shining like a beacon in that stormy evening. "That's my boy," I said, ruffling his hair gently. Kids his age have a knack for seeing things clearer than us adults sometimes. But Mrs. Anderson, my mother-in-law, wasn't having any of it. Her face twisted in anger. She snapped. "That child's lying. You've taught him to be a liar, just like you." The words hit like a slap, and Danny's tears started flowing, his little body shaking with sobs. That was the last straw for Alex. Standing up so fast his chair nearly toppled, he pointed a firm finger at his mother. "Don't you dare accuse him or Emma of lying. He's a child, Mom. What's wrong with you?" She shot back. "Oh, please. You're so whipped by Emma, you can't even see the truth. Maybe you should think about who you're married to." Before Alex could retort, his dad, a usually quiet man who preferred to stay out of these squabbles, stood up. His voice was calm but carried a weight that silenced the room. "Enough, Martha. I won't hear another word against my grandson or Emma. They're family." Martha, fuming, rounded on her husband. "Fine. If you're siding with them, maybe we shouldn't be together. How about that?" To everyone's shock, he simply nodded. "Maybe you're right. If this is how you treat family, I don't want any part of it. I want a divorce." The room went silent, the air thick with disbelief. Martha's face fell, her anger turning to panic. "You can't be serious, John." But John, with a resolve I'd never seen in him, just repeated himself. "I am. I can't be married to someone who treats their own family like this." Just when we thought the night couldn't get any more dramatic, Mrs. Anderson's sister, Aunt Linda, attempted to play peacemaker. "Martha, please, let's not make things worse. There's no need to fight with John over this," she implored, her voice a soothing balm on the heated exchange. But Mrs. Anderson wasn't having any of it. "I don't need your advice, Linda. I'll handle my family my way," she dismissed, her words sharp as knives. Aunt Linda, taken aback by the rebuff, stood up, her face a mask of offense and disappointment. "Well, if that's how you treat not just Emma, but all of us, I can't stay here," she declared, her voice tinged with sadness and disapproval. Her words were like a signal, and one by one, the other guests began to gather their things, their movements heavy with the weight of the evening's events. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of solidarity for what was right and disbelief at how quickly things had unraveled. The aftermath of the disastrous dinner at Mrs. Anderson's was like the calm after a storm. The guests had fled, leaving a palpable tension hanging in the air. Mr. Anderson, usually a man of few words and even fewer confrontations, turned to his wife with a look that was equal parts disappointment and determination. "Martha, this is the last straw," he said, his voice steady but laced with an undeniable weariness. "Your selfishness, your intolerance. I've had enough. I'm done putting up with it. I'm leaving this house tonight." The words seemed to hit Mrs. Anderson like a physical blow. For once, she was speechless, her usual retorts and defenses failing her. She reached out, as if trying to physically pull her husband back, but Mr. Anderson was resolute. He then turned to us, Alex and me, with a proposition that took us by surprise. "Let's not let this ruin our Christmas. Why don't we continue the celebration at your place? Emma, I know you had more of those wonderful dishes prepared." The offer was like a beacon of hope, a chance to salvage what was left of the evening. "Absolutely, we'd love to have everyone over," I replied, my heart swelling with gratitude for the unexpected solidarity. In a flurry of activity, I called the guests who'd left, explaining the sudden change of venue and inviting them to join us at our house. To my relief and delight, everyone agreed, their spirits lifted by the promise of a more welcoming atmosphere. As we all reconvened at our home, the earlier tension seemed to melt away, replaced by warmth and laughter. The living room was filled with chatter and the clinking of glasses, as I brought out dish after dish of the food I'd originally prepared with so much love. The compliments flowed as freely as the wine, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and vindication. Alex and his father pitched in, making sure everyone was comfortable and well-fed, while Danny, ever the center of attention, regaled our guests with tales of his school adventures. It was, against all odds, turning into a wonderful Christmas. As the evening drew to a close, and our guests started to leave, each one made a point to thank us for the lovely time, their earlier discomfort forgotten. Mr. Anderson stayed behind, helping us clean up, his earlier resolve softened by the evening's successes but still determined to follow through with his decision. Mrs. Anderson, meanwhile, spent the night alone, a consequence of her actions and choices. It was a somber reminder that the spirit of Christmas, of family and togetherness, couldn't be forced but had to be nurtured with kindness and understanding. That Christmas, while it started with division and discord, ended with unity and joy. It was a testament to the strength of family, not just the one we're born into but the one we choose and build through our actions and compassion. And as I looked around at the happy faces of our impromptu gathering, I knew that, despite everything, we had indeed had a great evening. In the wake of the Christmas upheaval, life took a turn I never would have guessed. Mr. Anderson went through with the divorce, leaving Mrs. Anderson on her own. Then, out of the blue, she called me, her voice a mix of desperation and hope, asking if I could somehow bridge the gap between her and Mr. Anderson. I just can't. I told her firmly, my mind flashing back to the pain in my son's eyes when she called him a liar. What you did to Danny, to all of us. I can't just forget it. So, there she was, moving out of the house she'd lived in for years, into a rented apartment that was a far cry from the comfort she was accustomed to. Her savings were thin, and the allowance from Mr. Anderson barely covered the essentials. Last I heard, she'd started working part-time at a local store, a reality she never imagined for herself. One evening, while Alex and I were clearing up after dinner, I brought it up. Can you believe she's working at the store now? I mused, not sure how to feel about it. Alex leaned against the counter, drying a plate.
Yeah,
I heard. Hard to believe, right? But, honestly, it feels like karma in a way. Her actions, everything that led to this. It's like she's finally facing the consequences. I nodded, the sponge in my hand pausing on a stubborn spot. I do feel bad, on some level. But then I remember Danny's face that night, and my sympathy just fades.
Yeah,
Alex sighed, setting the plate aside. It's a tough situation all around. But she did bring it on herself. All those years of bitter comments and manipulative behavior. It's sad, but maybe this will be a wake-up call for her. We shared a quiet moment, the complexity of family ties weighing heavily between us. Do you think she'll change? I asked, genuinely curious about his take. Alex shrugged, a hint of sadness in his eyes. I hope so, for her sake. But people only change if they want to, not because we want them to. All we can do is move forward and make sure our little family stays strong, surrounded by love and respect. His words, simple yet profound, resonated with me. The saga with Mrs. Anderson was a stark reminder of how fragile relationships could be, and the importance of nurturing them with kindness and honesty. As we finished up in the kitchen and settled down for the evening, I felt a sense of peace. Despite the trials, our family had emerged stronger, more united. The future was uncertain, but as long as we had each other, we could face whatever came our way with grace and resilience.